So he got on the bus here in Grand Rapids to go down there. And he never even got down there, and he found store keys in his pocket.
Oh.
So he had to stop someplace and mail the store keys back because he still had store keys in his pocket. He went into the service. He was in the service for 4 years. My grandmother wrote to him every single day, every day without fail. My dad started writing back to her every single day, but he also had grandparents that he wrote to. He wrote to his aunts and uncles, even though our family is small. I think he wrote to a couple of girls back home, a few.
Yeah.
But they wrote letters because, of course, their telephone was expensive and telegraph was expensive, and so they wrote. She wrote every single day, and I never got to see any of the letters that she wrote to my dad because it was wartime, and I'm sure he read them and they were gone. Mm-hmm. But every letter that he wrote to her, we found packed in a box that was about 18 inches by 12, I suppose, and it was separated by years and by months. Every letter that he wrote to her, she kept. And when we were cleaning the store garage, we found those. And they are an interesting piece of information. They're just magical in the time because nobody really knows how their parents were as children. No matter what you hear about them, you never really get it.
No.
And I see my dad in such a different light from being just a dad to 3 girls. They were amazing.
But I like the last letter you showed. It was written on a napkin.
The last, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
can't
he must have
remember.
been on his way home.
He was like, I'm coming home. I'm coming home. And there were shoe rations, of course, during this time. And the store, of course, was still open every day. The life went on. My dad got sick while he was in the service. He was quarantined in the hospital. Something happened. I don't know what. This is kind of interesting. My grandma and grandpa had one son, Bill, and then their best friends were King Cress and his wife, and they had one son, and their son's name was Kenny. And Kenny was my dad's age, and he was also my dad's best friend. They both were in service, not together in the same part of service, but they both went in at the same time, so they were both in service. And my grandma has written here in the book, Kenny Cress got married. And so Kenny Cress got married, and he and his wife, and then my dad, after service, came home and married my mom. And the two couples, I'm assuming, would know each other. But anyway, I got to back up here a little bit. My dad came home from service. Kenny Cress got married while in service.
Okay.
And Kenny Cress died in service and left a widow and I think a small child. So my dad came home from service and married my mom. And life went along. And when my grandpa died in 1954, my grandpa Brier died, my grandma, she was a widow from 1954 until 1970, all those years. And she was born in 1900, so she was 70 years old when she remarried. And she remarried King Cress, who was Kenny Cress's dad.
Oh, wow.
So my dad and Kenny were best friends, and my grandma ended up marrying Kenny Cress's dad. His mom had passed away, and so a grandma married a grandpa. Amazing. It was the only grandpa I knew because Grandpa Brier died in 1954 in February, and I wasn't born until September. So
Wow.
I never had a
You
grandpa
didn't
on
have
that
a
side of the family until I was in 10th grade. And then it was
Wow.
King Cress. Cool.
Connections all along.
The whole family knew him, so I mean, it was not a big deal. My grandma also writes in here, not just about my dad being in the service, but about a lot of different people. She writes about Phil Councilman, who I'm sure a lot of people know, and Les Burns, who has since passed away quite a few years ago. But Les Burns was my grandma's brother. He worked at the store with my grandpa. Phil Councilman worked at the store with my grandpa and my dad, of course. And she kept track of where they were in service, what they were doing, when they were home on leave, when they got married, how many kids they had. She has all of this depicted in here. And of course, those are people that I know too. Then she talks about the invasion in Normandy.
Okay.
She's got that written in here. And then they bought some cabin property out in Pekegam Lake, and now the house is built, and now they haven't still built the new store, but they did buy some cabin property, and I don't believe there was a cabin on the property. I believe my grandpa had one built, but they couldn't go out to the cabin because the water was too high. The water rose up, they couldn't get out to the land, so you couldn't go to the lake.
Oh.
It was as simple as that. No road.
No road.
Road's underwater, can't go.
Yeah, just can't go to Cabot today.
You can't go anymore. And the first time we saw that since then, about on Tar Road in this day and age, was last year. When the
Oh,
water
my
came up
goodness.
high on Pekegama Lake, it went over the road. You could go through it, but it was 4 or 5 inches deep. So
Wow. And that's how many years? 60
that's
years.
a lot of years,
Yeah.
a lot of years down the road. And then she's got President Roosevelt dies, and she's got VE Day, and she has, now it is July of 1945, and it says they bought the Kramer lot and they bought the Taylor lot. So they had to buy 2 lots to build the store, I believe.
Wow. Okay.
And the only other thing that could possibly be is that one of those lots are from out at the cabin. I'm unsure. But it says
Okay.
in here that they bought 2 lots from Kramer and from Taylor.
Did they say how much?
Nope. No prices.
Just that they bought it.
Just that they bought them and the
Okay.
sales were fine.
Okay.
And now we have victory over Japan, and the store was closed, and I'm guessing everybody celebrated.
Yep.
Because it absolutely has the store closed. So I mean, it was of course a big
deal.
A big deal.
Okay.
And now she has plans for the store, and we have another potato festival, and the shoe rations are off now.
Okay.
But they're still rationing tires.
Tires.
Yes.
Okay. The rubber.
Yep.
All right.
So,
That's
and then she talks about the letters from my dad coming less and less because now we're in 46,
Okay.
and he's getting ready to come home.
Okay.
And so there's less and less letters, and then, of course, eventually he gets home. And when he gets home, he gets sick and he gets diphtheria.
oh
And they
my.
now live across from the hospital. They've got a house built across the hospital, and he got diphtheria. And the house was quarantined. The doctor came there, but they were not to leave. Not Grandpa Brier, not Grandpa Brier, not my dad. Quarantined. And I absolutely heard stories about how Grandpa Brier would wait until late at night, and then he'd go up to the store and check out to make sure that everything was
going
okay.
good?
And then he'd go back home, which
Oh.
isn't, it's, I
Yeah,
mean, boy, you
hear
didn't
those
want, I mean,
stories
this is
now.
way back. But anyway, my dad had diphtheria, and when we were selling my mom and dad's house, we came across a black kit that had all this medical instrument stuff in it.
Yep. We've seen a couple of those.
I'm wondering if we gave you one. Karen was going to give that to you, I
Yeah,
think,
you
because it's
could've.
kind of creepy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not really anything you want to have hanging around. So,
All right. Well, let's get back to a couple of pictures.
yes.
And we get back to the book. First, you mentioned parades.
Oh, yes.
So, this is awesome. You guys had the absolute gorgeous parade floats in the world.
We never used the garages in back of the store. They were always full of floats. I remember that as a kid. Little pieces of paper that were like this that used a tacking gun to tack on.
Yeah.
And you can imagine how many tacks that would
Unbelievable.
take.
Yeah.
But we always had floats in the back of the garage. Could never use it for anything
Well,
else.
because they were so beautiful, the Herald Review, pretty much in almost all of the 4th of July parades, this one here happens to be from Coleraine, pretty much had a Brier float in it.
My gosh.
So, and they're all different looks to them. So each year they must have just looked and said, okay, we'll design it this way this year.
We'll do this or we'll do
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
And you don't even see these kind of floats anymore.
They don't even have such a thing when you look at parades anymore.
Cool. It was just absolutely gorgeous. So let's, this is more in the future, and we got just a couple of things left on the diary, so let's get back to the diary and finish that out, and then we'll finish the pictures. And
This just has to do with going down to Minneapolis for market. This is the first notation she makes about that. That's in 1947. They've been in business now for 10 years.
10 years.
And they went to a Minneapolis market to buy clothing for the store. I have no idea how they bought it before, if salesmen came. But anyway, they went to market.
But don't you do that today?
We do that today. That was considered our vacation as kids when we were kids. Other kids went to Disneyland or out to the Black Hills, or they went fun places. We went to market. And Grandma Brier would come with us because she was widowed, and she would stay with us 3 kids at the hotel. There was always a pool. I was luckier than so many other kids. Most other kids during that day and age, back then, they didn't eat dinner out very much. They didn't stay in hotels or motels very much. We went at least twice a year down to market. We stayed in a motel. We got to eat off a menu. We got to swim in a pool. And we did that 2 or 3 times a year. I mean, which was huge. We didn't get to go see anything else, but we saw a lot of great Howard Johnsons.
There you go.
Howard Johnson.
Johnson's.
That's where we stayed.
Wow.
Oh, and Grandma just has some notations here. They had their car stolen in Grand Rapids. Just around the 10th anniversary of the store. Somebody came and took their car. Doesn't say that they got it back, but I'm assuming they did. December, she said, oh, the weather was terrible, terrible cold. 27 below. Well, we have 27
Yeah, we
below.
have 27
We don't
below.
have 51 below very
Yeah.
much. Then, this is interesting because it says that Grandma and Grandpa moved into the apartment above the store. This new store is built now, and this is on April 30th. They moved above the apartment, and on May 14th, my mom and dad got married, and they moved into my grandma and grandpa's house. My grandpa and grandma moved above the apartment because they were working the store. My dad also was working the store, but my mom and dad were going to have a family, so she moved into the house, and that's how they did things. I found that.
So, and you lived there all your
interesting.
life?
All my life. Yep.
And then, is there somebody in your family still there?
No, the house
No?
has now since been sold and moved. When my dad passed away, we sold the house to the city, and the city sold it for $1 to somebody because it had to be moved. They were building the park across the bridge over here, and it's moved down by Oakland Park.
Okay.
It's down by
Yep.
Oakland, and
Yeah.
it's set up there. And it looks the garage is now an actual room in the house. The
Oh.
garage that had, what we use for a garage, they actually have a room made out of it, like a sunroom, which is very nice. They always called at the store, they called my dad the little wheel because my grandpa was the big wheel. So the little wheel got married on May 14th. There you go.
Oh, wow.
Oh, and she's got in here that the paper mill dam broke. I remember hearing about this. My mom talked to me about this because obviously she was living in that house. And their house sat up like this by the hospital, and then there was a long hill that went down to the backyard, a short hill, or a short level, and then a short hill, and then the whole backyard, and then it went down to the river. And when the dam broke, the water came all the way up to the backyard, all the way up to the bottom hill, and almost up to the short hill when the dam broke.
Oh, I bet you she was
So their
nervous.
house was built on the
Oh.
hills. No water came in the house, but my gosh, I can't imagine looking at that whole backyard underwater because that's what happened when the dam broke.
Okay,
That
and
was
that
a
was
big
it.
deal.
What was the date they had
That
here?
was on 1948 on September 3rd.
1948. Because the stories, we have lots of stories, and we have lots and lots of pictures of it, because it was like one of those things that the mill people, when we did oral histories with them, they thought the world had come to end. They were in the mill. They said the noise was
Oh, I can't even
unbelievable.
imagine. Well, she has actually on September 3rd of 1948, she says the paper mill dam broke, and then on September 16th, the coffer dam broke.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just one thing; it was two things.
Yes.
Two events.
And the logs all went down, and they stopped them down near Blackberry somewhere. They put a break here so they could at least get the wood back, because
Yeah,
the wood
went
yard
down
was
the road.
behind there. It went right.
Just everything
you know.
went. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh!
but people stood on the banks and watched the water flow because it was so powerful. We have
Okay.
pictures of them at the bridge, standing on the bridge, and I would have been fearful, but they did. We have pictures of them watching the water go. It was just nothing like we experienced today.
You get that idea if you go behind Blandon, and I don't know if they've got that so that you can't go back there anymore, but there used to be a little park behind the Blandon office
You
building
can go
across the
there
river.
to see the Peen Boy. Yeah.
Yes. But if you look at the water there and you see how high that is, how close it is to the edge,
Yep.
and then you look down at where the river is and think of that dam not being there, wow.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, that would be
That's
a
why
big-
we're the Grand Rapids.
Grand Rapids is right.
Yeah.
This is a little bit interesting. This is just family history. My grandpa and grandma Brier, they traveled more than anybody I know for being back in the 40s. The cars weren't very safe, I don't think, even the roadways. And they traveled not in this state. They went to Florida, they went to California, they went to Missouri, they went to New Orleans, they went all over the place. Well, on one of these trips, they were in a car accident. She broke her hip. And so she was put in the hospital in Missouri. And of course, Grandpa, there's no family, no friends there, and he met somebody at the hospital, and they said, why don't you come home with us? You can just stay with us while your wife is recuperating. And he stayed there for over 30 days. became a part of his family, visited Grandma during the day. They became the best of friends, and from there on in, for as many years as he lived, every summer they took a trip down there and visited those people, and those people came up.
Wow.
That doesn't happen today.
No.
You don't just go pick somebody up in a hospital and say, come on
Come
home.
on home.
But anyway, that's how life was back there. Everybody was neighborly. They did for other people, and they became the best of friends.
That's true.
The best of friends.
Yeah, that's true.
So he didn't build the cabin. Here's that note about the cabin. He didn't build it until June of 1949, and this cabin is still existing. In later years, he gave my dad a piece of property. My dad built a cabin. And after my grandpa died, my grandma was not a cabin woman. She was not an outdoor girl.
Oh, okay.
Never. Saw her one time in my whole life with a pair of trousers on. She was a dress, nylon, and high heel gal.
Okay.
That's what she was. Not high heel, but
yeah,
chunky heel.
Chunky heel.
But she was a dress gal. So after Grandpa died, she was not interested in going to that cabin. That didn't attract her at all. But my dad, of course, was getting ready to start a family, and cabins were where people could go to the lake, and it was far away. It was 6 miles. 6 whole miles to Pekegama Lake.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was a day trip. I remember one time out at the lake, just so that you get the drift about how things have changed in this day and age. It's 6 miles out there. My mom and my grandma would come into town and get their hair done on Fridays. And they would buy groceries, and they'd bring them out to the lake, and we'd stay there for a whole week. And then the next Friday, they'd come in and get their hair done, and then buy groceries and bring them out to the lake. And one Friday, it was really, really hot, and all we had was gas out there. There was no biffy. We had an outdoor biffy. We had gas lights, gas refrigerator, gas stove. Did all the food on grills. And it was really hot, and they bought 2 quarts of ice cream, because that was going to be dessert. And that's all that would fit in that freezer. That was how big the freezer was in that fridge.
Yeah.
So they put the groceries away, put that ice cream in the freezer. When my dad got off work, he came out to the cabin, and he'd bought 2 quarts. Oh my, what are we going to do? 2 quarts of ice cream. What are we going to do? We had ice cream for supper because it was too expensive to drive the car back to town to put it in the refrigerator freezer at home. So we just ate ice cream for supper that night. And I am not joking about that. And now how many people make how many trips a day and never even think twice about it? But it was way too spendy to do that.
Yes, way.
So that's, there you go. That's where I get my old thing. I want all that old stuff in the store.
Yeah.
So Grandma got sick. She got the flu. There were 3 men that drowned in a big wind. And it was up on Winnie, I believe. The wind speed in Minneapolis, which was what they clocked, not up here, it was 89 miles per hour. That huge wind.
Oh my goodness! So when
and
it was that blowdown, it happened before then.
And the store got broken into, or people tried to break into the store, but I don't think anything ever came of that. I think I told you about that. That's her travel. They were travelers, my gosh, and they had frost on August 19th of 1950. I don't have frost. I didn't have frost. I don't think that early for a while. And Karen got born. Everything. I have an older sister, so everybody out there that has an older sister or older brother, they totally get this. First grandchild, both sides.
Oh, dear.
Single son on one side. My mom was the oldest, so it was the first grandchild on that side. Oh my, when Karen was born, life changed for everyone. Everyone. Linda, my younger sister, and I, we always, when we look through pictures, we go, well, there's another one of her. So we have Karen was born, and Karen had the measles, and Karen got baptized, and oh my. Oh, and she even has, Grandma Brier even has stuff in here of Grandma Fleming, which was my mom's mom and dad, of their family. She wrote a note here that said Gordon, who was my mom's dad, left to plow snow in southern Minnesota. The snow was so bad in March of 1951, they called snow plowers from up here to go south and plow snow.
Wow.
Amazing.
In 51.
In 1951.
And this year I think they all got more snow than we did down south too.
Oh, I believe they did.
Yeah.
Okay, so Karen got her second tooth. Karen had a cold.